So it's a bit of a tough adjustment in our house, but it's good. I mean, I have two other daughters, so my oldest is very into the baby, but my middle child, not so much.
She said, just read it, because I was looking for movies that could be commercial and speak to the human experience.
Hey there, everyone. Back again with some hot comments on Blake Lively's latest fiery response to Justin Baldoni's leaked footage. And let me tell you, if you thought you were done seeing story twists, brace up. Apparently, Blake's eyes are seeing something completely different from what we're all viewing. But before we go deep into this swirl of denial and drama, take a second to slam that like button and press that subscribe because, let's be real, you know you want more meltdown coverage, and I've got gossip to dish. Love you. Blake's latest claim? Every frame confirms me right. Yes, you heard that right. After that bombshell Baldoni video dump, which looked to show them filming a love scene very willingly, Blake now says every frame confirms her allegations of unwanted contact. The twist? Anyone with eyeballs who's watched the clip is basically going, wait, what are we missing? Because a big majority of viewers, myself included, feels the footage seems more like a standard romance scene. Cozy intimacy, some cheek nuzzling, both performers leaning in. So, did we collectively hallucinate? If you ask Blake's legal team, apparently yes. But let's get real. The internet has eyes, the internet has opinions, and the internet lives on examining videos frame by frame with greater tenacity than an FBI lab. Telling us, no, that's not what you're seeing, might be the biggest move since the start of talk shows. Let's backtrack to the source of this debacle. Blake accused Justin of violating limits, imposing more on-screen proximity, and neglecting her comfort. Then came Justin's reaction, including the now infamous behind-the-scenes footage. If you've watched the film, it shows them performing a romantic dance, complete with near kisses and funny banter about camera angles. If you ask Justin, it's evidence that everything was consensual, that she was complicit in even coordinating some moves. If you ask Blake, she deems it proof of her emotional turmoil. Like, girl, really? The true stunner is the enormous mismatch between the footage's vibe, two performers bantering about scene details, and her allegation that it was all spontaneous, non-consensual uncomfortableness. People are left scratching their heads, especially considering she once seemed to be leaning in just as much as he was. Now, they are flinging around the word gaslighting like confetti.
A lot of it's my real-life clothes or my husband's clothes or my girlfriend Gigi's clothes. I was borrowing some...
Wait, that's kind of amazing. So you have something of Gigi's in the movie.
Yeah, it's like a wedding, like something old, something borrowed, something blue, something new.
Wait, which one? Now I want to think of the scene.
Oh, I'm wearing her stuff all over it.
Oh, really?
Tons of like Bodhi, which is with the suit now that I'm wearing is Bodhi. It was meant for my husband, but I borrowed it.
His suit?
It was meant for him to wear, but it's so pretty. Look at it. You guys are not getting it in the shot.
They claim Blake's trying to change our collective memory of what's obviously visible. If 95% of watchers detect typical on-set intimacy coordination, but Blake deems it abuse, so who do we believe? This is where the entire breakdown turns, from dramatic to practically silly. Because if there's one thing fans truly despise, it's feeling like a star is disrespecting their intelligence. The situation here, for many spectators, has crossed a line. Case in point, polls suggest a significant percentage of viewers, over 90%, simply don't buy her version. And that's not just a tiny disagreement, it's mainstream disbelief. We're talking about a big chunk of the audience that feels strongly that something doesn't make up. Meanwhile, every news announcement coming from Blake's management essentially pushes down on a story that very few fans think matches with the reality they see on screen. Remember, at first, Justin merely answered to protect himself legally. He added, "Hold on, here's footage to show I didn't do anything outside normal romantic scene boundaries." But Blake labels that answer merely another attack from the standard abuser's playbook. Critics point out how that answer sounds, uncomfortably identical to Amber Heard's tactics, portraying any type of self-defense from the accused as more abuse. The comparison is hard to miss, and the internet's picked up on it. The reaction has produced a tidal wave of skepticism towards Blake. In plain terms, if we can't even see a director and co-star display a fairly ordinary romance scene without calling it unconsented, are we jumping the shark? That's the huge question people are flooding social media with. I simply can't exaggerate the gravity of this issue. Real victims of harassment frequently face an uphill battle to be believed in a world where these debates are often muddled by public people making sweeping allegations. Blake doubling down on a circumstance that, to many, looks like ordinary. On-screen chemistry can accidentally destroy real claims made by others in the future. And that's the agony for watchers who favor the Me Too movement. They fear that if we start crying harassment at every love moment or humorous banter, we'll belittle serious abuse instances. It's practically the boy who cried wolf scenario in the middle of a big-budget Hollywood catastrophe. Because if the next star comes forward with a genuine assault claim, cynics would remark, "Oh, is this another Blake situation?" And that's a PR bomb if there ever was one. It shows exactly how fragile the balance between actual and manufactured charges may be. While I can't say the internet ever unites easily, it's very telling that on platforms like Twitter, TikTok, or even YouTube comments, the general sentiment is clear. Blake, we're simply not buying it.
We always tease each other. He was, after I gave birth, he was like, "Oh my gosh, if I lost you and I, went to the park with our 3 kids, I mean, think of the ladies I can." Like, this is a horrible thing to say. And he's like, "I mean, I've got a long list." And I was like, "Oh, really? Because I just have one on my list." I don't have anyone on my list.
And then it wasn't funny anymore.
No, it's so much more of a burn. He's like, "Wait, who?" And I was like, think of someone. Bob Newhart. I don't know.
Fan after fan claims they observe typical filming, with intimacy that's far from predatory conduct. Some cynically ask whether she's forgotten she's an actor. Others joke that Ryan Reynolds should make an appearance with a funny line. But, ironically, he's mute again. Usually he'd be the hilarious superhero swooping in with a funny tweet, but this time, the stillness is deafening. Perhaps he's attempting to keep things from blowing out anymore. Or maybe there's tension behind the scenes that we can only guess at. Because, if he came out with a joke mentioning her victimhood, that might entirely undermine her attitude. Blake's statement cites all the things she claims Justin did in the footage: kissing her forehead, pushing his face against her neck, telling her how nice she smells. But when you watch the real film, many viewers perceive a moderate, consenting close dance, the kind you'd expect in rom-com scenes. She wasn't physically trapped. She's reciprocating by leaning in, directing the angle, or laughing mid-scene. If that's actually unwelcome, it's the subtlest type of resistance we've ever seen. So, does she see something we don't? Or has she assumed we missed the full context? The public calls it gaslighting 101 because to them, the receipts convey a completely different tale. They reveal that she was equally in control, and that the uneasy vibe is nowhere to be detected. Ouch. For a moment, let's recall how beloved Blake Lively used to be, a fashion star, known for her hilarious banter with Ryan, and cherished by fans everywhere. Now, watchers are heaping on negative words like never before. Blake Targaryen, the word vibes, you name it. Even impartial sites like People Magazine or E! News have comment sections packed with people slamming her version of events. It's a dramatic shift from the admiration she formerly garnered. That's the problem when your charges don't line up with public evidence. Maybe she still has loyal fans, but the tide is obviously shifting. Yes, Amber Heard references keep coming up. Why? Because we've seen this before. A star claims abuse, tries to characterize every defensive move as further abuse, and then proof emerges that seemingly contradicts major portions of the story. That disaster became a Pandora's box for pop culture, rewriting how fans handle he said, she said conflict. Now, Blake's tantrum feels disturbingly similar, igniting fans' collective memory of what they viewed as manipulation or overreach. If this incident cements that parallel, it won't be good for Blake's reputation. People may be quite merciless once they catch on to the idea of someone crying wolf.
So it's a bit of a tough adjustment in our house, but it's good. I mean, I have 2 other daughters, so my oldest is very into the baby, but my middle child, not so much. But we're thinking of keeping her.
Does she play with her? What does she think?
Well, she sort of pretends to play with her. So in the beginning, our oldest is loving on her, and she's very maternal, and then our middle daughter is just keeps away from her.
On the flip hand, Justin's undoubtedly feeling vindicated after sharing the footage, expecting the world to see what he saw. It's just a normal on-set intimacy moment with no trace of forcible touch. That's mostly what happened, but there's always a risk when you share raw behind-the-scenes tapes. Some detractors may tear it apart and argue that he's still overshadowing her issues. That said, the polls and comments tend to favor Justin. the majority of people are deciding that he's more of a victim of false claims, at least from their perspective. This might actually help Justin's image if the public comes to see him as the guy who refused to stay silent, who demanded transparency, and who supplied physical proof of the problem. Because, let's face it, it's 2025, and a single video may shift the entire narrative. We can only fathom what the next stages could be. Could we see additional angles of footage? Will there be additional receipts from either side? Lawsuits or countersuits are clearly on the table at this stage. If Blake is determined to keep pushing her story and Justin feels defamed, we're definitely in for a legal roller coaster. And let's not forget, we still haven't heard from Ryan in depth, nor have any of the co-stars spoken up yet. Eventually, they might chime in, which might further confuse the matter. This collapse could keep evolving day by day, so brace yourselves. Tinseltown rarely sees small-scale drama. It's always on a gigantic scale. Now, the overshadowing concern that looms large. Does this whole mess affect the actual victims of workplace harassment? Many people are apprehensive that such high-profile incidents could undermine the authenticity of true stories. If the audience continues to see contradicting proof, and if a star like Justin doubles back on their defense, may it generate future questions when an actor or crew member comes out with a true story. That's a heartbreaking possibility, because every time a high-profile figure's charges fall in public view, the cynics are given fresh ammunition to mistrust the next actual victim who comes forward.
I'm honored, and I'm also more honored that because, what we're talking about is so important and so meaningful, that we're able to have this much anticipation, and so many people want to go see it and are talking about it. That's what I'm grateful for.
And you had a key part in bringing it to the big screen. How did this all come to be?
Well, in 2019, I read the book. I was sent the book by my book agent and friend at the time, and I was looking for films that could inspire, that were commercially viable, but also could really reach in and touch somebody's heart.
That's a conversation that's considerably wider than simply these two superstars. If you're a PR professional, you're probably screaming yes 1,000 times over. This scenario could have been handled much better, especially with a more nuanced approach from Blake's staff. Maybe addressing the uncertainty or any miscommunication in the moment could have helped alleviate the drama. Instead, we received a clear "I'm the victim" position, along with a declaration that everything we observed was false. This approach, regrettably, left a lot of supporters feeling insulted and angry by the way it was handled. Now, here we are with a total meltdown, overshadowing the release of a great picture, and the consequence is potentially ruining two big careers. It's also fueling a sense of cynicism about the Me Too movement and harassment charges. This is hardly the kind of triumphant marketing campaign anyone was hoping for. But before I sign off, do me a great favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, because I'm here to serve up all the juicy details of the latest story, so you don't have to go hunting for it yourself. All in all, this meltdown stands as one of the oddest and most bizarre he said, she said showdowns we've witnessed in Hollywood in recent memory. Blake maintains that the footage certainly supports her perspective, while the rest of us are seeing an entirely different story emerge. The public's verdict so far? Another hit to her reputation. So the real question now is, how will the studio, her fellow co-stars, or even those ever-secretive NDAs fit into the drama moving forward? Tinseltown seldom disappoints in the drama area, and this story might blow up even more if Blake decides to double down on her stance, or if Justin dumps even more revealing behind-the-scenes clips. We're all living for what happens next, and trust me, there's always a next chapter in Hollywood. Stay dirty, stay blessed, and keep your eyes peeled, because if we've learned anything, it's that Hollywood meltdown stories are the gifts that keep on coming.